I'm Ronald Thwaites. I've been practicing law in Jamaica for over 50 years. And I'm happy to have these conversations with you about legal matters that concern everybody's lives, whether you live in Jamaica or you live abroad. Now, please remember, this is not a substitute for consulting your own lawyer if you have a particular issue or problem. Listen up.
Why should I make a will?
You should make a will because you need to have a hand, a definitive hand, in what happens to your deadlift.
But I don't have anything to leave.
Never know what you have to leave. Very often you may not have what you consider to be much to leave or anything, but that some subsequent action, like an accident or an inheritance to you, causes your worth, your property to increase, and you want to have made the proper provisions in advance of that possibility. So every Jamaican adult should make a will. And they should make a will before they're old and decrepit. And just so that I can deal with all the cultural things, making a will doesn't mean you're soon dead. It doesn't mean that Duppy going to take set on you. It doesn't mean that you can't change it. You can always change your will, but to fit your altered circumstances. But it creates much less confusion, saves your hard-earned assets if you make a will.
What if I'm not sure who I want to benefit?
You need to try and clarify that. Certainly those people who are dependent on you in life, you ought to consider. And there are others who wish to benefit persons who have been particularly kind to them, even although they are not related by blood. And there are also persons who have causes, charities, institutions, who they wish to benefit. A will is not to be made thoughtlessly. And my own experience is that people who ask the question you did, if you say, well, all right, take some time, go away and figure out what you want to do. They can do that, but then when they're doubtful, I can always remind them, put down what your mind tells you now, because later on, you may change your mind and you're quite entitled to do that.
What if I don't want people to know who and what I left my property to?
A will is a private document. The persons who are named in the will have no right to know whether they are included or excluded and to what extent. So it's up to you to tell them or not to tell them. In the majority of cases, it's best not to.
If I have assets both in Jamaica and abroad, what sort of will can I make?
You can make a will that encompasses both of them, all of your assets. So there is nothing wrong in a will made in Jamaica that says, I give and bequeath my house in California to so-and-so. There's a technical issue to do with the validation of the will later on, there, or where the will is made there, here. It's called a process of resealing, but that should not deter you. One will is what you need.
Is it expensive to make a will?
No, it depends entirely on the complexity of your property arrangements. Where you have a lot of property and you have very many different bequests for its disposition, then obviously that is going to require more time and will involve a higher fee from a lawyer. But if it's a simple will, it should not be very expensive. And I want to say to you, a will, although it should be made by a lawyer, with the help of a lawyer, doesn't have to be. There's a classic English case where a will in proper form was made on an eggshell. Yeah. So the form of it is flexible. What does it have to include? First of all, it has to include the signature of the person making the will, and it has to be witnessed by two persons who are not beneficiaries. But if in a pinch you have to do this on an eggshell, go ahead.
Suppose I just write down my wish secretly and tell a confidant. Is that good enough?
No, it isn't. Has no legal force at all. It just doesn't. And so many people mistakenly think that that's, I told so-and-so how things are to go, and therefore I don't need to write down anything. That's a mistake. Property is bound by legal rules, and informal measures, particularly where real property is concerned, or indeed of anything of value, it does not rise to the validity of a will.
I really don't like my wife or my husband. Am I obligated to make provisions for them?
Yes. If they are in need, and in any event, if you make a will, you don't have to include them, but if they are in dire need and cannot be supported reasonably outside of your support, then it's going to apply. Think of the principle of justice. The principle of justice is that a person should not disinherit in death those who they are obliged to support in life.